Hello again, fellow audiophiles. I am Wave Theory, and today we are going to take a look at the BASN MTPro Planar Magnetic In-Ear Monitors from a company I had not heard before of BASN, as I just mentioned there. So these are currently selling for $199.99, 200 US dollars. On Amazon. So I will put a link to that below in the description. It will at some point become an affiliate link because I am working to start an affiliate link program with Amazon, just going through the gears on that one. And so when that is official, this link will become an affiliate link. So if you want to help support the channel and you are interested in these, you can buy these using that affiliate link. I will get a couple dollars back. BASN did tell me that I could keep these, but other than answering some technical questions and me communicating with them about how the review would work as far as timing and them telling me about their company because I know so little about them, they have made no other attempts to influence my opinion on this piece in one way or another. So all of the thoughts you are about to hear are mine and mine alone. So we will do shameless self-promotion here in just a moment, and then I will come back on camera and I will tell you a little bit about BASN, just relay some information they gave to me about themselves. Because again, I had not heard of them as a company. I consider myself to be reasonably well plugged into the audio space these days, so that's so I presume that there are probably others out there who don't know much about them either, so I will give them a little bit of an introduction to you. All right, so that is the plan for right now. So yeah, here we go. Shameless self-promotion. Hey, thanks for watching this video. Please remember to hit that like button, and if you haven't, please subscribe. Also, I have a Patreon set up so that you can help support me on a monthly basis, and I've set up a PayPal donation so that you can help me out in that way too if a monthly subscription does not make sense for you. Links for all of that, including the benefits, in the description below. Please check those out. All right, on with the show. When BASN first reached out to me, my initial reply to them, and I do this basically with any new audio company, or at least ones that I haven't heard of that email me asking if I want to do reviews for them, which is happening more and more these days for understandable reasons, I think. One of the first questions that I ask is essentially just, who are you? Right? I want to know a little bit more about their business and all of that because, I mean, we do live in a day and age where there's just a lot of scams going around through email and all of that. So I just want to make sure that I'm actually talking to a real company that is in this, like, you know, making real audio products and all of that. So I just asked BASN, please tell me more about yourself before we continue on with this. And they sent back a reply here, and I'll just read one of the first paragraphs here, because I think that's really all that needs to be done in this review, about who they are. So, who is BASN? Here we go. BASN Technology Company Limited, found in 2001. So BASN, which means be a sincere newcomer. BASN gets high praise from customers by our advanced production technology and strict quality control with 21 years of earphone production experience. Our main business is to design high-end ODM production, and our company has become a well-known international supply chain service provider of headphones. The research team designs with hand-painted design, graphic design, 3D design, and using the advanced production equipment and processing technology to meet various needs from customers. So the fact that they've been in existence for over 2 decades and I hadn't heard of them did puzzle me a little bit, but it's the ODM part of that, the original design manufacturer part of that, that makes sense. That they have been kind of working, at least I interpret this to mean, that for most of their existence they have been mostly working behind the scenes to design and develop mostly pro audio gear, it sounds like. In-ear monitors, headphones, that sort of thing. And this product here, the MTPro, is one of their first, if not their first, at least it's an early attempt to break into the market with their own branding, okay, on the product that they are selling. So with that context, let's talk about the MTPro, okay? So The only other issue, hang on, just coming back to that paragraph for just a moment here. The only other issue I have with it is it's like the name. Be a sincere newcomer. Okay, that's a fine name to start with, but it does seem like it's a name that has a bit of a shelf life. Anyway, just wanted to get that point out there. All right, so then we'll get back into the MTPro here review as well. What I'm going to do is do one of those kind of quasi-overhead shots here where I hold these up to the camera as well as the accessory packages and all of that kind of stuff, talk about the specs, the design, the build, the comfort, and all of that. Then we'll come back on screen and we'll do test gear and sound and then comparisons with some other IEMs that are on the market that I have reviewed. So let's do it. Quasi-overhead view here to talk about the features, the design, and build. And I will also talk about the packaging, all of that here, because that will help with the features. So BASN MTPro, again, right about $200 US right now. Uses 14.5 millimeter planar magnetic drivers in there. And so this is the front of the box, which probably makes this the back of the box. And yeah, features here that we see. We've got the planar driver in there. I don't know why planar is spelled with 2 N's there and 1 N there. Yeah. Anyway. Okay, frequency response standard stuff. Right here, look at this sensitivity and impedance stuff here. 32 ohms and 102, decibels. Sensitivity right there at 1 kilohertz. That's probably decibel per milliwatt input at 1 kilohertz. So for IEMs, these drive a little bit harder than average. They do require more power than most IEMs are going to. It is more like driving a full-size headphone in that way. So it's not crazy. Like, still most portable devices or most portable amps and all that are going to handle it fine, but you will find probably that you're going to have to increase the volume on them a little bit, which is going to drain your battery faster, right? Law of conservation of energy at work there. Okay, so then this cardboard sleeve comes off. We get this BASN logo box here. Flips open like this. Now, normally the IEMs would be sitting right in here. When you open them, I pulled them out because they were a little tricky to get out of here, and I wasn't just going to mess with it on camera. But we get this aluminum. Is this aluminum? Yeah, that's aluminum. Definitely cold to the touch. Box right here in there. We have owner's manual. We have instruction card for using a little tool that they put in there to help remove the MMCX connector on the cable into the IEM because it definitely fits in there tight. All right. Opening this up. Okay. We get a bunch of different tips here. Silicone, foam, a bunch of different sizes. We get some like doubles, we get some like the flange type, okay, all of that. I tried a bunch of these different tips and most of them just did not work for me well, so Spin Fit CP145s to the rescue. So I can link to those down below. That's what I use for most of the review anyway. So anyway, bunch of tips here you can try. You get a cable clip, right, which is nice. It's nice to have this carry the weight of the cable or help if it gets snagged on something instead of pulling down on your ears. Here's that little tool I mentioned to help remove the cable from the IEM. Okay, so a little cable removal tool there. We have single-ended 3.5 millimeter to 6.35 millimeter adapter plug here, and then here is the cleaning tool that has the brush on one end and a little wire hook-like thing on the other end, because IEMs go partially inside your ear, which means earwax is involved, so isn't that always pleasant? You get 2 cables in here. I didn't use this one at all, really, because I just didn't have a use for it, but this is one of the 2 stock cables, okay? And this one uses a 3.5 millimeter TRRS connection on it, and the reason is because it has an inline microphone and controller thing. See, that seems like it's probably a little bit fuzzy. Focus, camera, focus. Okay, anyway, that's what this is here. All right, so I didn't use that, but it's there for those who might be of interest in it. I have no idea what the quality on the microphone is. I didn't test it. You can call it incomplete if you want, but I just don't really have an interest in that. For one, it means talking on the phone, and I don't like doing that. All right. Okay, the IEMs themselves then. Here they are. I went with the deep purple color. If you think that was the wrong choice, hush. Okay? Yes, that was a deep purple band and song joke. Okay, there they are. They're made of, the shell is a CNC aluminum. It's really solid to the touch. The color is supposedly deep purple, but like it's, you know, just kind of more like almost a gray shaded purple kind of thing. Still looks nice though. Okay, you're good. All right. So yeah, MMCX connectors, and here's the nozzle. Come on, camera. Focus. Focus, I say. There it is. A little bit better. Okay, it's a rather shallow insert here, so it does not go in the ear very deeply, if that matters to you for fit reasons. And then we have a little pressure release, like, opening right there. So it's a bit of a vented enclosure is my understanding. So what that hole is right there. Okay, and then as I said, this is a SpinFit CP145 tip. I have rather small ear canals, so I use the small size, but this was the most comfortable. This struck the best combination of sound and comfort for me, as SpinFit often does. All right, so there's the build on the IEMs themselves. Here is the stock cable that I used for most of my listening. It is, I think, a copper. All right, it's got a fairly nice braid to it. It actually does not tangle all that much, which is surprising for a stock IEM cable. Like, you see how cleanly that untwisted. Okay, 3.5 millimeter single-ended connector on the amplifier end. Okay, and then yeah, the whatever these are called, like shepherd hooks things that go around your ear with the MMCX connectors there. This is pretty decent stock cable. Okay, as far as stock cables go. I really don't have a ton of complaints about it. The only thing I would have liked to have seen is the option of a balanced connector, because a lot of mobile amplifiers these days have balanced outputs on them. And usually for IEMs, you know, that makes a fair amount of difference with crosstalk, because IEMs, generally speaking, are on the more sensitive side, and so you can hear things like that of crosstalk with single-ended connections. These, however, again, at 32 ohms are one of the harder driving IEMs out there. Again, still not ridiculous, because they are easier to drive than many full-size headphones anyway, so they are still relatively mobile amp friendly. So it's not as much of an issue here, but they could still benefit from the extra power output that comes from using a balanced output more often than not on mobile devices. So anyway, that would be the only complaint I have about the cabling here. Otherwise, it's good. Okay, so I think that is build, features, specs, all of that. Let's come back to my face on camera, and we'll talk about sound. All right, test gear. So 3 amp DACs, if you will, that I used to drive these on are the Radzone Ear Studio 100, little Bluetooth portable DAC amp. And I mostly used the single-ended output of that with a triple win cable. That was connected to my Samsung Galaxy S22 Plus smartphone, and mostly I used that in true mobile situations like going to the gym and that sort of thing. I also tried these on my Canon N6 Mark II with EO2 module. That is a DAP, and that would have been using USB Audio Player Pro, and just direct plugging into the 4.4 millimeter Pentacon output of the EO2 module there, and listening to either lossless streams from Qobuz or local files, again through USB Audio Player Pro. And then finally, I would also use the Canon as a transport, connect it to my Cord Hugo 2 via Canon's USB-C to coax SPDIF cable, so the coax input on the Hugo 2, use that as a DAC amp for this as well, and that's all single-ended, so use the stock cable mostly for that there. So those are the signal chains that I would use to to test these. And I will say that because a lot of those devices, especially the KN and the Cord, the KN has a numbered output for volume level. So its sound pressure level, like is attached to a number, 0 to 100. I had it in high gain most of the time. And like these are more power hungry because of their planar nature and being 32 ohm than most IEMs. So I can confirm that using an actual number from the KN. And then also, if you're familiar with how the Hugo 2 works, I have a review for it I can link to down below. It has a color-coded volume control wheel on it, and I definitely was pushing the colors closer to white, which it uses rainbow. Red is low volume on the Hugo 2, and then it runs through the colors of the rainbow up through purple and then to white for the loudest output. And I was definitely pushing it closer and closer to the white there compared to other IEMs. So again, it is not insanely hard to drive. Most mobile devices, like all of those mobile devices that I just named, gave it plenty of power, but it does drain the battery quicker, which is just, again, a law of conservation of energy thing. If it takes more energy to reproduce the sound, it's going to drain that energy from the battery faster. So these will eat into your battery life, some of your mobile devices. Just keep that in mind. Okay, so then let's get into the sound proper on these things. So from a frequency response standpoint, these are a little bit darker sounding, okay? They definitely emphasize the bass, and so there's some elevated bass presence here, okay? So lots of low end. I think bass heads in particular are going to be interested in these IEMs, okay? So fair amount of bass in terms of a presence standpoint, and it extends well pretty deep down in there. Digs pretty deep. The mid-range is less present, but it is well tonally balanced and pretty smooth. I didn't really have any issues with honkiness or shoutiness on it, so again, I interpret that to be pretty good mid-range tonal balance through there. And then the treble, again, is a little bit more relaxed. It does not come across to me as elevated. It might be just a little bit lower than neutral, which in combination with the slightly elevated bass gives the overall frequency response presentation like a perceptive darkness to it, but not overly so. Like there is still a fair amount of treble presence and sparkle to it. It's just not emphasized in any way. So it's not a V-shaped headphone. It's a bassy headphone, or bassy IEM. Okay, I should say. Now, from a presentation standpoint, there is a lot of smoothness to the presentation here. Like, it's got some good low-end impact. It's like punch, slam, those sorts of things. Like, it's not huge in that regard. It's not overly aggressive, but there's a noticeable punch and slam to it in the low end to go with that low-end rumble and presence that it has. So again, bass heads I think will want to take note here. All right, but then that smoothness and relaxedness, it is present throughout the entire frequency range, because both the mid-range and the treble regions are also just a little bit more smooth and laid back in their presentation. All right, so it just overall creates a very non-fatiguing sound that is bassy and fun and also listenable for extended periods of time. All right, so if that's something that you're interested in, take note. All right, now so the tonality is pretty good, but the timbre gets a little bit weak in the treble. I think the bass in the mid-range have good tonality, good timbre. The treble, again, I didn't really notice any peakiness to it, so to speak, or what peakiness there is covered up a little bit by the recessed nature of the entire treble region. So there's really not a lot of sharp peaks to the treble or sharp S's or sibilants or anything like that coming on with it, but there's something just a little bit odd with the timbre in the treble, that it's not as strong as the bass or the mid-range. So cymbal hits and all of that can sound just a little bit shishy to me. Like they're not quite as well defined or as clear or that sort of thing, again, as the bass in the mid-range are. So it's not horrible. I didn't find it to be a deal breaker for my ears, but just relatively speaking here, the treble range is the weakness in the presentation as compared to the bass and the mid-range with this IEM. Okay. Spatial stuff. The soundstage is pretty wide, okay? Pretty decently sized soundstage, and then within it, the imaging and the separation are reasonably good. I found the sonic images to be a little bit bigger than some other IEMs. So they are placed well. There's okay separation between sonic images, but the sonic images are just a little bit larger, like a little bit wider in the sound field than some other IEMs that I have listened to as well. I also found that the depth this way to be just a little bit lacking. It's not completely flat, not completely wall of sound, but we'll get into comparisons here in a minute. But in comparison with some other IEMs, it did seem just a little bit flat to me in the depth dimension. Okay, not a deal breaker, not horrible, just something that I noticed. But mostly I noticed that in comparison to other IEMs when I was doing some A/B stuff, listening to it in a vacuum, that hardly ever became an issue for me. So that's just something to keep in mind. All right, so there it is. Like overall, the sound, it's a little bit darker presentation. It is a bassy IEM with lots of low-end rumble and extension. And while not class leading, some pretty good physicality to that bass too, with the punch, the slam, and all that. The mid-range is a little bit recessed comparatively, but it is well tonally balanced and smoothly presented with reasonably good tonality and timbre to it. The treble is also slightly recessed, at least compared to the bass, so again, tilts the whole presentation just a little bit dark. But it is also smooth. It's not really peaky or sharp or anything like that, but it does just kind of have an odd shishiness to the sound of it. It doesn't sound convincingly realistic, at least in comparison to the bass and mid-range presentation on this, but it's not horrible to my ear. It's not a deal breaker to my ear, but it may be for some listeners. All right, so pretty good on its own. Okay, it's fun. I enjoyed listening to it and all that. So let's talk comparisons. I have not reviewed a ton of IEMs, but I have a few that are still here that I can talk about. One of them is like the $20, so an order of magnitude cheaper, the $20 KZ DQS. Okay, link in the description below, which is again another like fun, bassy IEM, which really is stunningly good for its $20 price point. But the reason that I bring it up here is the MTPro comfortably reveals the $20 IEM to be a $20 IEM. Like, this is way ahead in the resolution game and all of that. It's also just more refined and smoother in its overall presentation and just like less harsh and more easily listenable as a result on that. Okay. Going the other way in price, these two check in somewhere in like the $360 to $380 price range. Okay, they just are what I have on hand. It's the Mangird T V1 and the DUNU Vulkan. Okay, IEMs here. Both the T and the Vulkan are going to out-resolve the MTPro. Okay, the MTPro, again, it's got reasonably good resolution, but it's more of a smooth and relaxed kind of presentation. The details are in there for the most part, but you can definitely tell there's a step up in resolution with the step up in price that comes with the T and the Vulkan. Okay, now that said, I still think that the MTPro has an overall smoother presentation than the T in particular. To me, the T had a little bit more forward upper mid-range, which could give it a little bit of a hint of shout and honk as compared to the MTPro. I also, while the T has a similarly wide soundstage and it's better in the depth dimension in terms of its space and its staging and all of that, it has a little bit more of a 3-blob effect to its imaging, where you get left, you get right, you get center, but there's not as much in the middle there. So it has a less coherent soundstage to my ear than the MTPro does, even though it does the depth a little bit better. But it's still like resolution, has more, it it also, like, the MTPro has a little bit more mid-bass presence than the T does, and the T is like a slight like W shape, so it has a little bit more treble, a little bit more mid-range, and all of that. It still has a lot of sub-bass, but not as much mid-bass as the MTPro does. But again, the T has more resolution. Okay, it just does. Ditto the Vulkan on that. The Vulkan is a little bit more like the MTPro in terms of its smoothness. Like, it's just a little bit more smooth, it's more relaxed, but it is also more resolving than the MTPro. Okay, but it is not as big in its staging. It does depth better, but it's a smaller sound stage as well. There. It also doesn't have quite the rumble or the impact in the low end. It doesn't have as much mid-bass presence to it and all of that, but it does have the overall better timbre and tonality, I think, through the entire frequency range. It just is a little bit more convincingly real in that way. Now, why am I bringing those up? I don't have any other $200 IEMs in-house at the moment. So I have to do a $20 one and then like a $360 or $380 one where the MTPro falls almost right dead in the middle of that price range, just to kind of try to place it. Is the $200 a fair asking point? I'll come back to that here in just a moment. Because in the past, it has been a while now. In the past, I was an owner of the Ikko OH10, which was a $200 IEM once upon a time. That was, again, another big sound stager, fun bass, forward treble, a little bit relaxed, recessed mid-range again, which again is what a V-shaped signature does. All right, and again, going from memory here, so I can't compare resolution directly to, because again, the MTPro here is decently resolving, but it's not like going for amazing standout resolution either. It's again going for a more relaxed, laid-back kind of presentation, which it pulls off without being too veiled or, lacking in resolution to any meaningful degree. But the OH10, the thing that I remember most about it is just that really V-shaped signature. The treble could get really hot on it. Yes, it had a really wide soundstage, but the treble could be really forward and sharp with some gear. I really liked the OH10 with the iFi hip DAC, version 1 of that, the blue, green, teal colored one, because that hip DAC had a very relaxed top end to it and a very smooth overall presentation. I thought the OH10 and the hip DAC really meshed and synergized well, because they traded off and basically came out with a basically neutral top end, which really made the OH10 sing to my ears and all of that. I struggled with IEMs at the time for a variety of reasons, still kind of do with fit and all that, though I'm getting better about that I moved on from them. So I don't have them here to compare. The MTPro is already, darker and smoother in the treble than the OH10 was. I hypothesize, I can't confirm this, they're going to be similar in soundstage size. I can't really speak to resolution again because I didn't have them A/B. But what that means is that I think the MTPro is going to be more amp matching friendly than the OH10 is, because it's already, again, more relaxed in the top end. It's more forgiving. It's very smooth in the presentation. You can probably plug it in to just about any neutral to neutral bright sounding mobile amplifier, and it will sound smooth and non-fatiguing and pretty good overall. Okay, again, I do overall like the sound here and enjoyed listening to it quite a bit. Okay, whereas something like the OH10 I thought was much more picky, because you really needed to rein that top end in control, like rein it in, get it under better control, and that's just not a worry here with the MTPro. All right, so is the MTPro worth it here at $200 and not for everyone, okay, as no audio product is, because I think it's going to appeal to bass heads who like smooth and non-fatiguing presentations throughout the whole spectrum here. Okay, that's the target audience, and for that audience, I think, yes, this is definitely worthy of consideration. Check them out. If you prefer more mid-focused or brighter signatures, okay, or you are going to be distracted by the not horrible but relatively weak treble timbre on this, then no, probably not for you. Look elsewhere. But I will probably use these as my gym IEMs because I like the Bassy presentation. It's detailed enough to not be a problem for me. But it's also like, it's smoother and it's non-fatiguing and it just has that fun physicality to it, which when I'm at the gym, I'm listening to a lot of hard rock, heavy metal, that sort of thing, and it matches well with those genres and on the gear that I have. So that's probably where I will use it going forward since it's staying here. That is when I'm not reviewing other IEMs, which, just before I started filming this, Apos moondropped a couple of IEMs on me. Okay, so those are coming up in the near future as well. All right, so I will go ahead and leave it there. I am Wave Theory. This has been my review of the brand new BASN MTPro Planar Magnetic In-Ear Monitor. Thanks to BASN for sending me this for review. Thanks to all of you for watching. Please remember to subscribe if you haven't, like this video, leave a comment. Okay, check out my PayPal, check out my Patreon, you know, do all of those things that you do to support Wave Theory. Yeah, support YouTube channels. All right, thanks for watching, everyone. Enjoy the music.